This episode is brought to you by Trident Coffee, the veteran-owned brand where every sip inspires you to live life full steam ahead. At Trident, they are more than just coffee. They are storytellers. It's crafted by veterans. Their instant cold brew is perfect for those who serve, those who have served, and anyone who values wellness. Featuring natural ingredients like organic mushrooms, adaptogens, and nootropics, it's more than just a morning pick-me-up. It's your new wellness ritual. Enjoy it at home or on the go, wherever your day takes you. Trident Coffee isn't just about great tasting coffee. It's about empowering you to be the healthiest version of yourself, because great veterans make great citizens. Try their instant cold brew coffee today and taste the freedom of wellness. Remember, when you choose Trident, you're not just choosing coffee. You're choosing a path of connection through health and wellness. Use promo code DTD15 for 15% off your order. All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1, and we're live. Hey guys, welcome back to the DTD podcast, Dynamic Tales Delivered. I know that you've been watching some of the shows that have been coming out, that when I went down to Bragg, talked to the Green Berets, the ones that were graduating coming out. But this week, we got a bad man. I'm telling you, he was a Green Beret. He was a spy. He was all over the world. And I think you might just learn some relationship advice from him. This week in the studio, the author of Into the Darkness, A Journey of Love, War, and Emotional Freedom, Dave Fielding. What's going on, my friend?
Thank you so much for having me on, DJ. Things are going very well. How's stuff going with you?
It is going excellent. Now, you and I have been back and forth on when we were going to do this, and we had to kind of schedule certain things, and we had to move things around in our schedule. But I'm so glad that this is happening, because I think this book of yours is absolutely fantastic. It really cuts into the emotion. You really show a part of yourself that I think needs to be shown a little more often out in the public. I think we get so far into the weeds of stuff that sometimes we forget to show our true selves. And I want to start with a quote from the book. It said, "Being a real man, though, starts with being real with yourself. Fact is, too many guys are struggling with suicidal thoughts, and too many guys have lost to their demons. I'm about as tough as they come, mentally and physically, and I was very close to being one of them." I want to talk about, during this entire conversation, how you've changed as a person. And we're going to start back in 2010 when you joined the military. You're an 18 X-ray. You get right into the Special Forces pipeline. I want to know what you were before you joined the military. And I think what you mean is you're after 9/11. You've seen what has happened there. You've had family members that were in the military.
Mm-hmm.
When you go into the military, though, what kind of guy are you? Are you idealistic? Are you just looking to, burn a few years down? What is it that you're actually trying to do when you get in?
Pure, unadulterated idealist. I was, so my grandfather, I've said this on a couple other podcasts, but he was a POW during World War II. And his story, he started off in the Marine Corps, served in the Philippines, was 1st Airborne Marine Group. He was a tail gunner on the back of the plane. And but at that time in the 30s, about 37, 38, not sure exactly the time frame, America wasn't looking like they were too interested in anything that was going on in Europe. And then I think it was like 39 or 40, he went up to Canada and enlisted in the Royal Canadian Air Force. And because of his airborne experience with the U.S. Marine Corps, they made him an officer, and he was a navigator in the Pathfinder Group. The Pathfinder Group was one of the first special operations squadrons that the British Air Force stood up. And the only stories I got are mostly from my father, because I was only 2 years old when he passed. And he used to say that when they would take off before all the bombers. So he was in a Lancaster airplane, and his job was to find the cities at night that they were planning on bombing. So like heavy water plants, munition factories, stuff like that. And he used to say, like, before any mission, everybody was puking in the stalls, right? And, because there was a lot of them weren't coming home. They were going to get shot down. And he was, I believe, shot down on his way back from a mission from Frankfurt in February of 44. He evaded for 2 weeks, week and a half, 2 weeks before he was captured. And he ends up at Stalag Luft 3. So he's running around no boots for 2 weeks in the German winter of 44. The German doctors were going to amputate his legs, and they ended up not. But one of the nights he was in the infirmary at Stalag 3, the Great Escape happened. And so, you know, the second set of tunnels, he was one of the guys that worked on it. His job was, while his legs were healing, that he'd be sitting there with a book, and anytime he closed the book, they would stop working on the tunnels. So he was like a near signal for everybody below. But it was pretty cool to, so I had that history growing up in my family, stories of him. And so when 9/11 happens, I'm like, oh, hell yeah, man, now it's my turn. I'm going to earn this family name, And so I actually ended up going to Norwich. My parents, at the time, I wanted to just get a RIP contract, which is direct to Ranger Regiment, which is now known as RAS. They do a RAS program, so similar to 18 X-ray. But my parents weren't all too keen on that. They were like, maybe you should try college first. And so the only college I applied to was a military college in Vermont called Norwich University. So that was like the in between. And the whole time I'm like, oh man, I'm going to miss out on the war. I'm going to miss out on the war. And obviously I didn't, but, I got a little distracted. I had some friends working in New York City. They're like, Dave, come down here and make money. And, that wasn't really true to who I was. And I remember the moment that I said, this isn't me, was I was standing at ground zero, and it was a chain link fence and still 2 giant holes in the ground. And I looked at myself later in the mirror. I was like, I haven't done anything about this. Right. And so, while I was at Norwich, I was blessed with being exposed to SF guys. They had SF guys as instructors in the Army ROTC program. And one of my role models is Master Sergeant Shane Bailey. He was A-15. He was in Afghanistan like October of 2001 with the SIF company. And so he has a really incredible story. And, I wanted to be like him. And so off I went to the recruitment office, and I walked in. I was like, give me an 18 X-ray contract. I'll accept no other. And, ultimately I wanted to get in the fight and free the oppressed, and I still believe that to that day. That's the sole purpose of what Green Berets do.
Well, I want to go back to your grandfather for a minute, because when you talk about him being in the United States Marines, then going to Canada, being a tail gunner, that was like, you didn't expect to come back from any of those missions, especially being like a tail gunner, being under the belly gunner, anything like that. And when he gets shot down and he makes it through the week, 2 weeks, some of that had to come forward, I would think, when you're in training, when you finally go to training, when you go to SEER school. Do you lean back on that and think, man, if he could do that back then, I could definitely do this now?
Oh, definitely. Trust me. Thoughts of my grandfather kept me pushing through SEER school. I was like, I can't make the family look bad, So it's tough. I mean, SEER school will separate who really wants to be there and who doesn't. It's a true revealer of character, I think. And, it's just doing hard things. Doing hard things reveals character, and the resilience that it takes to push through to get through those hard moments. And, SEER school was probably my favorite part of the training, mostly because of my grandfather. And I'm saying to myself every day, he lived this, and he did it for 18 months. And
and to go on to that, what's really interesting to me though, about when you talk about your grandfather and that want and desire to do something, and then you go to a military college, I guess I'm just trying to figure out, with all of that, thoughts behind you, family behind you, where you kind of lose sight at the military school and decide that you're going to go to New York and make money, because that doesn't seem to fit the timeline.
No, it doesn't. No, you're right. And so I think of, no, it doesn't. It really doesn't speak to who I am at the core, is what it is. And so, when I was at Norwich, I was actually an Air Force ROTC. And I knew my grandfather originally wanted to be a pilot. And I'll tell you that the training kind of jaded me.
Okay.
The training jaded me. And I was looking around and I said to myself, I'm like, this is all you need to do to become an officer. This is it. And at that time I was looking to go to AFSOC. I wanted to go to an AFSOC, be a combat controller. But in 2000, I was there from 2003 to 2007. They don't have half the programs that they have now to get young lieutenants into AFSOC. Back then it was like 10 slots a year, and I'm competing with active duty captains, and who knows where I end up. So I think really it was it lacked a certain difficulty for me at the time, and it just didn't feel true to what I wanted to do. And so I got like, I had some friends, my friends in New York City, filling my head with big numbers and, telling me that the war is going to be over by the time I get over there. I understand that their point of view was that they were coming from a point of safety, but they didn't understand who I truly was or where I came from and what my family history is. I would say in my lifetime, the type of person I am is that I'm a dabbler. I like to try everything. I'll jump in 2 feet, don't work out. All right, I'll move on to the next thing. But I'm glad to say I did it because I know I didn't like it, and I know it wasn't true to who I am. And so I think reminding myself of September 11th and my friends and role models, watching my buddies that I went to Norwich with graduate Ranger School, take infantry platoons and go over to Iraq and Afghanistan. I said, what are we doing here? That's our tribe, dude. That's our tribe. We got to go be with our tribe. And, I kind of was a fish out of water in that job. I was definitely a fish out of the water in job. It was, I'm into fitness. I like getting up early. Stories growing up with stories of my grandfather. He was an ultra marathon runner. Did a 200-mile, a double century bike ride with like tuna fish cans on his back from Malden, Massachusetts to Portland, Maine. So doing hard things was in the family. And, I worked in advertising, and, the advertising industry, they show up and work at 10, they start drinking around 4. For somebody that takes good care of their body and likes to get up early in the morning, that those hours don't really match up, so.
Absolutely. But here's the two questions that come from everything that you said about that. The first one is, do you think you weren't who you really were in front of those friends, that they weren't really friends? They didn't know you. And number two, when you go to the 9/11 memorial, you look in the mirror, are you a little ashamed of yourself?
Of course. Oh, yeah. Oh, it was definitely shame. Felt a little bit of shame. I got choked up when I was there. And, just seeing that there's still 2 giant holes in the ground, and it was just chain link fence with tarp, right? But you could still see through this little slats or slits in the chain link fence. So you could see that. And so, it was a hard pill to swallow. I was just merely adapting to my environment. And this will come full circle to, I think, our conversation when I go over to the IC, is that I adapted to my environment against my own true nature, and I think for that led to naturally it led to unhappiness and seeking something greater than myself.
Well, here's kind of the overarching theme I got from the book, from us talking on the phone, from all of the different conversations that we've had. I feel like a lot of times in your life, you did something to please other people, not to please yourself. You wanted to join the military. Your parents wanted you to go to college, so you met in the middle, but you went to college. Your friends wanted you to come to New York, not go in the military, so you come to New York. You go in the military, you get married, you do something to take care of that person. That doesn't happen. You go into the spy world. You get into other things where you're trying to make other people happy.
Mm-hmm.
do you think that that's what you were for a majority of your adult life, was just trying to make other people happy instead of trying to make yourself happy?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, totally. I think probably the truest version of myself was when I was at Norwich. I've talked about this before. I talked about it with other people. Norwich for me was a place that I could be myself, and it's a very masculine school. You're getting up in the morning, you're doing PT. You can get in a fist fight if you got a problem with somebody, take it out back type of thing. So for me, I felt as though, while I was there, it was probably the most purest form of not giving a single damn what other people thought of me. And I felt probably the best about myself when I was at Norwich. And I felt the best about myself when I was in an ODA team room. And so these things, to your point is, yeah, you're absolutely right. The sacrifices I made for everybody else was really, I was sacrificing myself.
But that's the question that comes up to me is why? Over and over in the book, I kept going, I don't understand why he's doing this. Why? And it's a really honest, legit question to you. I don't understand why for so long, because it took you a long time to learn this, that you continued to give up yourself to please other people. So that's where I'm trying to get in the psyche of why you would do that.
I think the motivations and the way that it approaches you in my journey came in different forms, and so I look at kind of like the going to New York thing. Yeah, I got a little jaded about some of the things that I saw, in the military at that time, or at the military school, and that, felt like that wasn't really true to my nature. And then that kind of seemed like in the not knowing what to do next, an opportunity presented itself, like New York. So I was like, all right, I'll jump on that. What's the worst that could happen? Not make it type of thing. And then if you look, you kind of fast forward, when I quit everything there, cut ties with everyone, and left to go into special forces, I think that's where I started to feel better about my path in my life, right? But even later, right, the relationship, I think I was always so busy. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. I'm just trying to answer your entire question. But, I look at that relationship and, as anyone that reads this book, it's a tale as old as time, as I like to say. But, that was always a blind side for me, because I was so focused on doing what I was doing immediately in front of me, and in my mind, it was more like those needs are bucketed here, and that's spoken for, and I don't need to do that anymore. Or not that I don't need to do it anymore, but it's the effort that I would have to put into dating, seeking women out, all this other thing was taken care of because I was in a committed relationship. So, I was able to focus on more important things, some more idealistic things, like becoming a Green Beret. So, yeah.
Well, and do you think that relationship and how the other person approached that relationship made it a little bit easier for you to be a Green Beret?
Well, getting into the details of because this predates the book, but you're bringing me back quite a bit. But I think of even that relationship was, it was down on the wire, because here's the story with that. I was single and we dated in college. We met, my ex-wife, when I was I studied abroad during college. Right. So that was also kind of like an expanding experience for me. It was actually cheaper to study abroad than it was to go to school. So it was like, it was kind of motivated, for other reasons to do that. But that's where I met my ex-wife. And, And so it was like off and on for a few years. And when I got to New York, I believe she reached out to me, and I was working like 80, 120 hour a week, 80 to like 120 hours a week. I didn't have any free time in myself. And so I was like, yeah, sure, come on over. Right. And, she basically like moved in with me, and I'm like, all right, this is great. Like, I can do this. And, but it was on and off. Like I remember when I left to become a Green Beret, she dumped me, and I was like, all right, I'm fine with this. And then like, I think like a month, not even like a month before I left for boot camp, she sends me this long email, like, I love you, blah, 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 like this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, oh, all right. And, hopeless romantic, jumped in my car, went down to New York City and saw her, right? And it was like all was forgotten, forgiven type of thing. And so when we were at the crossroads of me getting my orders to go to Oki, that was she had a career in New York City, right? And I was like, hey, I'm going to Okinawa. I am not doing this long distance, this 13 or 14 hour long distance relationship, 3 days of travel type of thing. So, we took a deep look at ourselves, and, we went down to, fun fact, we went down to the Fayetteville courthouse and we tied the knot. And, actually Gene in the book was one of the courthouse nuptials, and another good Green Beret friend of mine.
Why do you think you got married? You just said you're not going to do this long distance relationship. I get it that, whatever, she can go with you or whatever, but you guys were so ready to get rid of it. But then you're like, you know what? We're ready to get rid of it. Let's get married. Let's take it to the next step.
Yeah. And it was like one of those like breakage moments. And here's the tidbit for the audience is fear. Fear is one of the greatest and most unhealthy emotions that we harbor inside ourselves. Right. And so looking at, there's kind of also this sort of like, romantic point of view, in military relationships, where it's like, oh, he's away and he's serving our country, type of thing. And, I haven't done a single deployment that yet. We didn't know anything about it, but it was very much romanticized in both our heads, type of thing. But at the same time, it's like fear, right? And it's like, oh, I'm going to be single again. This is a nightmare, right? And it's so having that person there, right, a support system was great. And she liked the idea of, living by a beach in Okinawa. Wasn't a bad deal. But, kind of back to, fear being a motivator, right? It was definitely a decision made out of fear. And it was a dumb decision to make out of fear. And I really think of like, both our role models in life for a marriage would be both our parents, and it's just like, oh, well, they met at X age, they got married, and, everything worked out, and there's highs and lows with that. And so, for me, I wasn't really looking outside my own little bubble, and plus, 5-meter target for me was going to be on a team, and that was going to be my priority, other than her.
So what's life like? ODA 1111, 1st Battalion, 1st Special Forces. Let's talk about life there. And I want to take it from two separate angles. I want to talk about your life as a soldier and your life as a married guy and trying to make this other stuff work, because they almost immediately conflicted each other.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I talk a little bit about this in the book is, she just, it's a hard adaptation, and it depends on the dynamics of the team. We had a mix of single and married guys, so it wasn't too difficult, to adapt to. Just like you show up to a new unit and the military assigns you a whole bunch of friends that some you may not like and some you'll love, So same thing for a wife in Special Forces, and she made friends with other SF wives, and they went out and did stuff. and kept each other company while, we're out XYZ country, Southeast Asia, bombing around, going to training, you know, uh, Fort Bragg, bouncing between Fort Bragg, Fort Lewis, Okinawa, and Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, etc. So I think really for me, I made a conscious effort when I was on the team, to talk to her when I could. And I think that's a important commitment to have, and I don't think, I didn't really start seeing the issues with the relationship. I mean, she'd forget my birthday, which pissed me off, but I, like, I'm away from home and I get no goddamn happy birthday text message. So like, in this day and age, it's easier to stay in touch with each other, with FaceTime and all these other things. So, for me, it's making that effort and we made that effort, but it wasn't until we started spending a lot of time with each other that I started to see the rips, because DJ, this relationship, minus a short period of time when she lived with me in New York City, was mostly a long distance relationship, and there was a lot of pining for each other. There was a lot of like, oh, I miss you, this type of stuff. And, but actually being in the house with the person for an extended amount of time was like, when I moved to DC, I was waiting around to go to training, and, they'd send me out a few weeks here, a couple months here, or whatever. But like, in the book is like, I think I was home for like with her I went on 45 days of OCONUS leave, right? PCS leave. And then plus I waited around for probably 6 weeks for my first iteration of training. That was the longest amount of time we've ever spent with each other on location. And here I was seeing, what she does every day, and I wasn't disillusioned. I've been with her at that point. I've been with her for a while, and I was trying to help her. I was like, all right, we can get a job, or start a family, or let's just see where it goes, but that was like, that was me kind of just being an honest broker. I mean, we were together for a while. We could have really frank conversations with each other. And, my idea for her, because at the time I was just socking money away.
I think you describe it as war money.
War money. Yeah. So I built up quite a bit of war money over the years, and I was fixing to buy a house, house and a baby. Maybe I'll have some normalcy in my life and everything else. Right. And so she was like expressing a lot of, discontent about it. And obviously I took it as maybe she's just adjusting to this new lifestyle, but, for the audience's sake, is that I was at the end of 2017, I was fixing to get out of the military. I was going to get out of the Army. And I didn't know what the next horizon held for me then. But I was just going to, classic me, I'll figure it out when I get there, so this whole, spy thing was just merely an interest to me. I always, I thought about it. I read a lot of books on deployment, like spy fiction novels, Le Carré, Tinker Tailor Soldier of Spy, Spy Came In From the Cold, all these books, great spy novels. And I was like, I kind of want to do this. This would be really cool. The idea of working by myself, et cetera. So I threw my name in a hat. I submitted my packet to an organization, and I didn't hear really anything back. They flew me back stateside to do an interview. Extensive paper check on you, and the selection process is the training itself, which I think is interesting. And because the training can be difficult, human intelligence training is very hard. If it's something if you're mostly an introverted person, you're going to have a hard time, but anyways, so I made this deal with her, right? And I was like, okay, I'll re-enlist 6 years. I'll go 6 years, and that'll bring me basically a 14. And then we'll decide to go in-def, and I'll probably go in-def after that. But I'm in for 20 if we do this. But we're going to settle down. We're going look at having a family and get some stability in our lives. And, basically we shook on it, And so I re-enlisted, PCS to DC, started doing the spy job. And I would say I went to training for a few weeks, first iteration of spy training. And I come back and I'm all like amped up because I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I can't wait to do this job type of thing. And obviously I can't share any details with her, but we're out to dinner, and the whole time I was at training, I talked to her when I could, and to keep things interesting. So I'm asking her, I'm like, basically I was getting a little bit of words from work that, what the next year and a half was going to look like for me. And it was pretty stable. It was like, you're going to go to training, you're going to be back, this, that, and the other thing. So I was talking to her, I was like, maybe this should be the year we should start a family. Because putting me in DC was only a stone throw away from my family in Boston and her family in Chicago. So if we had the kids, like my mom would come out, her mom would have came out, type of thing. So at this point, I am committed. I made a lot of decisions, to move forward with this move forward with my ex-wife. And so we're at dinner and I'm like, yeah, again, like I said this before, this is a good year to start having family and start trying. And she's like, no, I still want to travel, this, that, and the other thing. And DJ, I'm like, we just lived for 5 years in Japan, man. Like, I don't know how much more traveling you're going to want to get, I eventually, I'm picking and prying at her, because this newly armed human intelligence training I got, I'm making sure I'm asking her why. I'm digging at her motivations. And, eventually she says, I don't want to have kids, not now, not ever. And I'm like, well, this is news. This is a change of heart. This is,
but let me stop you.
Yeah, sure.
Looking back on it, hindsight's 2020. Was it really news?
I'll tell you this, and I hope this makes you laugh. My mom disliked her very much. And my mom is a very strong Italian woman, or was a very strong Italian woman. She passed away a few years ago. And she was my ride or die, right? And she's a very honest broker, tells it the way it is. And she said, David, those kids are going to be 50% loser, all right? Don't do it. I wouldn't trust them. I wouldn't trust them around with her at all. And I'm like, all right, Mom, you're right, but I love her. I have hopes for her. But like she was saying I was ignoring an internal full stop. I was ignoring an internal dialogue deep inside me, right? And I knew.
And that's the whole thing. You point out in the book that she tells you how, not only tells you, but shows you how disruptive you are to her life. And we're going back to Okinawa. So I'm just wondering, like, are you ignoring it because that's what you wanted in life? You wanted to be a Green Beret. You wanted to be a spy. You wanted to be a dad. So you'll just ignore everything around you that was bad. Is that what happened? And she was giving all, you being a spy expert now and knowing to read all the signs, is she giving you all the signs before that? Because I feel like in the book she was.
I do a really good job at articulating the signs, in the book. I think, yeah, definitely. But I mean, in the spy world, there's something called public pronouncements, right? So if I'm meeting with a source and they say something significant, right, and I write that down in an ops cable, they stand that ground. They're emotional behind it. It's emotional charge about it. The tricky thing about my ex-wife is that she was such a polar opposite human being for me. She wouldn't get excited about anything. Right. So it was a very hard read. And she was always a hard read. And, she would say something, she'd say stuff like that. And I was like, she doesn't really mean that. There's no way she really means that. She loves me. She loves me for the good and the bad, DJ. I'm so goddamn lovable, for Christ's sakes. I'm a Green Beret. Boy, was I a fool, So it's like, yeah, absolutely. I think, what I know now and take it, the most powerful, a almost 40-year veteran over at CIA, pretty legendary case officer, did some really cool stuff. He was saying, words are all we have. Words are all we have from these people, and we got to work with that. And I think about all the, just like you said, all those conversations I ignored, right? All those things I ignored because, the stress of the job, stress of being on ODA, trying to be a good dude, to her, when I can. And so, it was a pressure cooker prime ready to bifurcate, and guess what? That's what happened.
Well, and let me, I want to point out something else too. I want to ask you, is there stuff that, because we're going after that conversations that we missed. Is there stuff that you did wrong, that you think that you did wrong, or maybe led to some of those decisions being made, or anything like that? Is there anything that crosses your mind that you can look back on the situation and go, yeah, I maybe misstepped there?
I think probably the greatest misstep is just, like I said earlier, is, she had, she was, I totally miscalculated her digging in, into her lifestyle and the way she wanted to live and everything else. I thought maybe I was like, oh, I could change her mind, or she'll come around eventually, these things. So I think for me, the things I failed at being a partner was communicating, probably a lot more clearly about the things that were near and dear to me, and having more of these conversations. Also realizing that I never, and this is one thing I failed with, is I never challenged her on anything. And I'll admit this, I grew up in a spicy household. I love my parents, right? Italian on one side, Irish and English on the other. Spice, right? And so, for me, I was always avoiding conflict with significant others, right? So this is, something that I had to learn was to, and this is what some of the spy training helped me with, was having difficult conversations with people. Right. And that's what a lot of the job is. You're not going in there and just getting intelligence and everything is rosy. No, you haven't seen this person in 2-3 months, maybe 6 months, and they're coming in with all their problems, with their hair on fire. And you have to alleviate all those concerns, and tell them that it's going to be okay. So navigating those conversations, but using it in my own life. I didn't at that point, never occurred to me, so I greatly failed her in that way.
Well, and I want to go a little deeper with that. Was what I was thinking about the situation was that you're going to be a spy. You're going to be gone 6-8 months at a time. Who knows when you'll come back? You could possibly never come back from something. Do you think, looking at it now, that she dug in so much because there was a lot to lose, and I think maybe she would feel like she was giving up everything for you to go do that? She was going to be the stay-at-home mom. She was going to be with the kids. Do you think that was any kind of an issue with her?
Definitely. I would imagine that her, looking at this objectively, I'd imagine her point of consternations in the relationship is that, from her point of view, she's like, I gave up a career to go out to Okinawa with him. I gave that up. And so for her, that's a very vulnerable place to be. It's a very vulnerable place to be. And, I supported every endeavor that she had. She tried starting a small business out there. But it, there was, Green Berets don't take too kindly to lack of effort, So, I had my own stuff to focus on. I couldn't really help her, build her own business as much as I, tried, at the same time, I'm a team guy. I understand certain things, but, so I think there was, obviously a lot of resentment on her. And I think it's justified. It's totally justified resentment, because it's not easy being an SF wife. But, at the same time, it's, I took good care of her, I took care of her bills. I was, I was hoping I'd just give her 40 grand cash, right? Half the war money, and see her on her way.
Yeah, that didn't work out so well.
No, gentlemen, those listening, it never works out the way you think it's going to.
The time that you say it'll go quickly is the time that it goes wrong on you. Speaking more to you being back in the States and going this spy route, you're also trying to get through this training. You're trying to become this new job that you're doing. And over in the book, you're talking about, you say, all I kept thinking was, what the fuck do I do? Should I get a divorce? Should I do this? I'll be single. I don't have a clue how to date anymore. And who the fuck wants to date a divorced guy in his mid-30s? And this is where in your book that I keep seeing this real weird line on you is, you're going to be a spy. You're going to travel the world. You're going to be, quote unquote, James Bond, whatever it is you're doing. It doesn't really matter if you're single. And I always wondered reading the book was, why is he so concerned with this other stuff? Was it just the thought of being alone? Was it just worried about being alone? What was it that slowed you down? Because let's be honest, you had the world by the dick. You were going to go everywhere. Let's be honest, you were.
I'm glad you have that perspective, and it was fear. It was fear, holding on to that fear. Like I said earlier in the conversation, I was unwilling to own the shadow inside me, to own that darkness, right? And it was guiding every part of my life, that fear, and not understanding any of these things. And, but, when you have to do something new, when, your expectation, you build this life together and you have this expectation of where you're going to be in X amount of years. And that's also a fool's errand too, is, being like, oh, and, we're going to have family by this. And, I even was saying in the book too, and, at that time, the internal dialogue was like, I don't want to be an old dad, I'm pushing 40. I care less, so, but it was really just letting that internal fear and dialogue run amok. And I was stuck in this negative feedback loop, right? And this is where we get into the kind of mental health stuff, is that I was in this negative feedback loop of thoughts become emotions, right? And more thoughts, more emotions, more thoughts, and more emotions. And never stop to think that, just exactly like you said, is we have a lot of good stuff going on, Dave. Just because we don't have this one thing doesn't mean it's the end of the world. But at the time, I thought it was the end of the world, which is silly, because, I'm not to minimize anyone out there that's going through it. I mean, the process of divorce is brutal, and it sucks, but they're expensive because they're worth it. It's true. It's true. It really is. I mean, it definitely, and I'm sure she would say the same thing. She's probably living a much with all the money you gave her. I'm sure she would. Well, I hope so. Yeah. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what that got spent on. I was, it's funny because I was the person that would always want to blow money. I'd come back from deployment and I'd be like, oh, fuck. Oh, I gotta get this $250 Oakleys. Oh, I want these Oakleys so bad, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna drop $3,000 on getting a sleeve, and I gotta keep up with my teammates, right? It's just, and she was always like, no, don't do that. So I'm pretty sure she's got that money locked up in a 4.5% interest rate, and I
don't mean to laugh, but
yeah,
I love because this is that thing again where we flip who you are. You take such a funny approach to it after it's said and done, after it's all processed. Then you're like, oh, okay, now I see what everyone was saying.
Yeah.
I want to take it, maybe if you will indulge me, and go a step further.
Sure.
When you say thoughts become emotions, and I feel like with you, thoughts become emotions, become actions.
Well, yeah. I mean, I thought about that for a while.
Punching the steering wheels, thoughts become emotions, become actions with you. And in one sense, that's a very mature and adult way to move through it. You're not hurting anybody else. You're not really hurting yourself. You're moving through it in a physical way, but you're moving through it. But I felt like through the whole book, that's what you kept saying over and over. Thoughts, emotions, actions.
I'll tell you this, anger is a hell of a drug. It's a hell of a drug. And I think for, a lot of Green Beret friends of mine have read the book. They've reached out, had similar experiences mental health wise. And, I had a Green Beret this weekend. He said to me, he's like, Dave, exercise saved you. Exercise saved you. So, these thoughts and emotions were on repeat, but my outlet was the gym. When I was at spy school, you don't have much of an outlet there physically other than maybe one day of the week or maybe on the weekend. For me, I was training for I did 2 ultras before I left for the course. And, so I still had a lot of legs on me, right? So I was going out doing 8 to 10 mile runs, just getting it out of me type of stuff. But, what got me through that course was going all in on it, to forget about the divorce, to forget about the stuff. But those quiet moments when I was on a surveillance detection route, and I had nothing but other than remembering all my left and right turns and cover stops and timing and, the million things. Oh, the bona fide, can't forget the bona fides with the source and, near far recognition signals, blah, 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 the mile list, right?
I love to say when I didn't have anything to think about, but all those things.
I just wanted to be angry, right? And I kind of I look at who I was on the ODA and I look at who I am now. And, I relied on a lot of anger to kind of get me through things, right? So then I would just kind of get angry. And that was the default thing to get angry about was, I'd be coming out of, I was Jackie Ray Biggs for a week and I come back and I got Dave Fielding problems now. And Dave Fielding problems was that she's coming for alimony. She's taking everything. So it's it was just, at the end of the day, it's just money. But I was so wrapped around the axle because at that time, I'm a fighter, man. I'm a fighter. Green Berets are fighters. Love as hard as they fight too. And so I was, had no means of really fighting. And I just had to internalize it. And then I also had to keep up with appearances and everything around me because I couldn't look like I was falling apart, And yeah, I think I answered your question.
No, you expertly answered my question. It's funny though, you go through the divorce, you pretty much take the advice of just pay this off and get this, I think, as you quoted in the book, this albatross from around your neck.
Albatross off my shoulder.
There you go.
As my father said.
So you do it. You've already paid off some other stuff. You are working through the raging thoughts of being married to a childless barista who was debt-free because of you.
Mm-hmm.
You're all these things. You finally get done with that, and you move into another relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I'm reading, and I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? You just ended it. Once again, we talk about having the world by the dick. And then you're like, you know what would mess this up? Let me do that.
Let me do the most spiciest, dangerous relationship to not only my career, but my own life.
100%.
It's how much more self-sabotage do we want, Dave? And I think of, it's just I look at just how lazy I was with women. And
that would not be a word I would use.
I mean, I would use it as that's how I would describe myself. It was just, I was always just again, focused on work, focused on the big picture, focused on, the idealism that, I was raised as and, brought into this world and, have my points of view and stuff like that about, life and being true to my nature. I kind of, like I said, like, women was always a blind side for me. And the thought of being in a committed relationship was like, okay, that's safe. I'm in a committed relationship. I don't have to be out there hunting all the time. I can put my effort towards go all in and work, which, I tend to do. And I like, in this job, you got to be passionate about it, because it's going to have its hardships too. So I was and also is, as I say this, is that I was in a hell of a rush, because of all these societal pressures, not actual pressures that are really on us, but just we create in our own head. And so I'm like, oh, mid-30s. Oh, I better, I got to settle down and have kids, or, clock ain't ticking for me, man. So it's like, but it was just this stupid rush that I was in is really it. And I look back at myself and how silly I was, because I also think, and this is a point I'll bring up, is the job doesn't leave you a whole lot of time. The job doesn't leave you a whole lot of time. And, guys that grew up in the GWAT era, you're away from home a lot, right? And so...
Well, in the jobs especially that you chose.
Especially the jobs I chose, again, ego is a bad thing to serve, but the thing is, it's, I'd be coming home. I know I only got a couple weeks between here and there. All right, let's see what I can get, and, Gabriella in the book was a very easy option because I didn't have to worry about not talking about work. I didn't have to do that dance. She always knew where I was, type of thing, not left to worry. So it was, for me, I'm like, this is perfect. This is perfect. Right. And, for the life that I was looking at, living and getting into. So, for me, there was no red flags. It was all green. Let's go. End zone, touchdown. Come on.
Okay. I want you to describe Gabriella. This is not Dave Fielding that I'm talking to tonight. This is Dave Fielding back then, because you already just kind of started to describe. But I want you to look back on it, and I want the people that are listening and seeing this to understand what you were feeling.
Oh, so, for me, I look at kind of the things that were missing from my marriage, right? There was just a certain level of connection that wasn't there. Intellectual engagement, reciprocation of things. And so, this relationship was, from the beginning, a yo-yo. It was a yo-yo. And it was driving me insane. It was all I could think about. And I never in my life had a woman chase me. And here she was coming for me, it's in and out of my life, in and out. Oh, I don't know if we should do this. So let me describe her to the audience, which I don't, if you're still active duty, I don't recommend you do this. This is not great advice. So I was in the training squadron when I was at training, and she was the company commander of that squadron. So, yeah, and being an NCO and her being an officer is a big no-no, man. That's a no-no. I might make it out okay, but it's a career-ending risk for her, And I think of there was excitement about that, because as I joke that I make this joke to case officer friends. I've had a bunch of case officer friends reach out to me, and there's a couple tidbits, Easter eggs in the book, that they've identified and they laughed at. But I like to joke, there's Cat 3, Cat 2, and Cat 1 sources. Cat 1 sources are the most, they're the highest risk, right? They require the most tradecraft. They require, backstops, all these other things. They're expensive, but they're worth it. She was the first Cat 1 case I had. So there was that excitement of that. There's part of me, there was a thrill of getting away with it. Totally was a thing. But, it was also that she was reeling me in. I never had a woman send me country love songs. Wasn't even in a country, but I guess I am now, So, we, it was back and forth for a few months. And eventually, I remember we went to an Orioles game and we were drinking in a bar. And I walked her to her car in Baltimore. I was like, this is Baltimore. I got to walk you to your car. I walked her to her car. And just being a gentleman, she kissed me, right? She came right at me. And I was like on a cloud, I was like a 7-year-old kid, man, And, at that point, there was all this texting back and forth. And, she wanted to be with me. She didn't want to be with me because of the risk. And then eventually she's just like, screw it. I'm doing it for love. Like, I want to be with you. And, for me, I was like, oh, riding this emotional roller coaster of yo-yoing. And so I got, never having experienced that, I got sucked in really quick. Yeah. Fool.
Let me ask you a personal question. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to. You think at any point in this relationship that she's playing you? Spies are master players.
Mm-hmm.
She ever playing you?
She playing me?
Yeah.
Oh, totally. I mean, what was it? Was it a product of, her, having human training? No. Probably a lot of relationships, that point, I was like, I had a couple of relationships before I met my wife. And then I was with my wife for an extended amount of time. I did not have the reps most dudes have in their 30s. Let's be honest. Right? Like, it was, for me, so it was like a whole brand new world of like dating. Dating in college is like, a girl falls on you, and that's it. There you go, right? You meet them in class, they're everywhere, right? It's not hard. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. So it's, but out there in the real world, it's much harder. Now I'm in a covered unit, and it's a complicated conversation to have with everybody, of like, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm in the military. Oh, what do you do in the military? I'm a Green Beret. What brings you to DC? Stuff, work, it's like, so, not a whole lot, not many SF units in the DC area. So it's, it was a convenience. It was also fear, but I was really attracted to her too. It wasn't just like this thing of them coming at, her coming after me. I was really attracted to her. And I think of here's another point that you make about me, DJ. And I love your perspective of the book, because everyone's getting to see a whole different side of me, with your questions. But this is what I also love about my own randomness and how I am, is that like, I kind of, she was suggested to me, if you remember that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But all right, but let's point something out. Yes, she was suggested to you, but there was also a lot of people around you going, this is a horrible idea. Yes, she was suggested to you. Yes, it was pointed out to you that, yes, she was giving you signals and all that kind of stuff. But there was a lot more people around you saying, this is a bad fucking idea, Dave. Do not do this.
It was a bad fucking idea. Yeah, and it was. And, but it was, love be damned, I'm doing it. And so it was that emotional yo-yo that had me in, right? And I didn't give myself enough time after the divorce. You don't realize.
But how is it
these
affecting you being a spy?
because you're jumping right there. Your head has to be in the game. And by your own admission, it wasn't in the game. You were constantly thinking about her. And this is before we even go into the Middle East and we're taking down targets and things like that. How is this affecting you? Because you're not new to being a Green Beret, but you're definitely new to being a spy. And I think we can agree, two completely different worlds. How is that affecting you going into this world?
This episode brought to you by Max Belts. Guys, are you looking for a perfect accessory to wear every single day for every single scenario? Well, you've come to the right place. We all know that nothing stands up to wear and tear like a good leather belt. If you're looking for the toughest leather belt on earth, then you've come to the right place. Max Belts. They're handcrafted in the USA by veterans who are serious about their craft. And if you're looking for a belt that's tough enough for your active lifestyle and help support those who've given so much to our country, look no further than Max Belts. It's the toughest belt on the planet. It's a perfect solution for casual or dress wear and ideal for utility and firearm carry. It's the highest caliber of American craftsmanship, and it also positively impacts our military charity partners. Once again, Max Belts, you can't go wrong with them. I wear them every day. They're the toughest belt on earth. And you can find all of this and so much more at maxbelts.com.
I think one thing that I was really good at is compartmentalizing. You know, I think that's a trait that a lot of us have in the soft community, compartmentalizing things. And, you know, these things were clearly affecting me. Clearly, you know, my divorce wasn't even finalized. I'm still dealing with that. And I think, like, I was completely lying to myself that I was okay with everything. You know, my coping mechanism was fitness, you know, and I kept saying to myself, like, oh, as long as I'll just get it out the gym. But that isn't fixing the underlying condition, right, of the madness that I'm in, or the negative thought loop that I was stuck in, you know, or the fear of, you know, not only the fear of the divorce taking everything from me, but also the fear of losing this woman now, right, who I was very much invested in. And I think, like, the investment just got worse and worse as the stakes got higher, you know, as I had to cover my tracks. Yeah, did I answer your question?
No, you did, because
okay.
No, you did answer my question. It was affecting you being a spy. What I took away from it was, I think that you thought you were being a very good spy, and that you were learning the ropes and that you were very good at it. But let's fast forward a little bit to when you're in the Middle East and you're taking down targets. Yes, you're focused on those, and I love in the book that you don't take a lot of credit for it. You took down some pretty big name dudes, or helped take down some pretty big name dudes. And I want to talk about that, because we keep talking about what a you know, a tough guy you are and the things that you did. Let's talk a little bit about the Middle East, and let's cut Gabriella out for a minute, and let's focus on the job over in the Middle East, because now you're finally doing, I mean, you did the Green Beret stuff, but now you're finally doing this spy work. You're away from her, essentially. You're doing the job. Let's talk about how you feel once you get over there and you're doing this fantastic job.
I'll tell you, as soon as I got off that C-17, I was ready to kick fucking ass, man. I was so amped up to be out there. I was so excited to be working with the people I was working with, which I cannot mention. But it was varsity league counter-terrorism. You know, I'm like, I'm finally here. I just want to be in this fight so goddamn bad, you know, for so many years, and I'm finally here. And I was, you know, chasing Abu Sayyaf group around Southeast Asia, you know, A and B network in Bangladesh. Let's see, you know, you have we're just ICE, you know, the switch from Abu Sayyaf raising their hand to saying that they're ISIS now. You know, a lot of these other smaller groups pledging allegiance to ISIS, the splinter factions amongst the MILF, turning into the BIF, like, you know, all these acronyms of these terrorist groups in Southern Mindanao and stuff like that. And you know what? It was fun. I felt like my fill. I got my fill. It's classic Green Beret work in FID, but we're not doing that much kinetic stuff. You know, we're not doing unilateral stuff. And so now I'm able to work mostly by myself, teeing up targets, you know, working unilaterally. You know, we don't need approval. You know, we get F3AD, baby, F3AD all day. And we get a fix on a shithead where we're going to act. And it's like you go out, you do the job, you do a good job, and you have instant gratification, right? And that's producing that body. It's you know, to put it bluntly, that's exactly what it is. And hell yeah, man. It's exhilarating as hell. And you're with like-minded patriots. It's the best job in the world.
C-17 lands. Thoughts, smells, sounds. What do you remember?
Well, I definitely remember it was much warm. I remember the warm air hitting my face, warm, dry air. And I literally said this when I got off the plane. I was like, all right, Grandpa, here we are. Let's do this, right? That was the first thing I said to myself when I got off the plane. I'm like, here we are. Let's go. And, you know, I was pretty tired because, you know, we made a whole bunch of stops before we got there. And, you know, as one mil flight tends to do that. And, you know, jet lag settling in and, you know, I'm doing my turnover. But, you know, first thing they do, they take me to the cash cage and they hand me a whole slew of munch. They're like, you're going to need this. I'm like, this is more money I've ever seen in my entire life. You know, I'm a blue collar kid. You know, my father, right? Growing up, I'd be like, hey, you need any help? You need anything? And he'd always be like, I need a duffel bag full of $100 bills. And no shit, that's literally what I had. And I had to stop every ounce of my being of calling him right in the moment, be like, you're never going to guess what happened, dude. Right? You know what I mean? I was finally at a point in my career. And, you know, I've had really good commanders in special forces. I had really good commanders and, you know, they trusted us NCOs, you know, to make mission. And, you know, we do all the planning. We come up with the missions. They let us do all the work. And I was really blessed. And then, you know, I'm out there, you know, same thing. But now I have authority. Now I have a lot more authority. We're in a DTAC environment and I have a laundry list of shitheads that need to die. And it's that simple.
First target you went after. You don't have to say a name. Let's kind of set up the story and how you felt. You're finally at the Super Bowl.
So, I was very fortunate when I showed up. So long tabbers to long tabbers, you know, there's this mutual trust, you know, and I'm doing my RIP TOA. I'm getting used, right? And I'm taking over a couple sources, right? And I'm scheduling meetings, all that stuff. Can't get into too many details about it, but the, you know, one of the team leaders, he comes over to me. He's like, hey, Dave, I want you to be a second set of eyes on this. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Right. He's like, yeah, do your thing. And so, basically it was just a little extra AFO on, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. So I had no idea what the target was. I just did my job, you know. I was on a DA team for a while, right? So I know what the boys want. You know, I know what they're looking for. I know, you know, those are what do I care about if I'm hitting this target? You know, how would I do it, right? So it's, you know, knowing those things gives you much more advantage doing this job, you know, because of your customer, right? And so, like I said before, I said this on every other time is, you know, I only had a tiny, tiny piece of that. I was, all the credit goes to the guys that did the raid and the people that found them. That's what I say. That's what I say. But it was, so I put that in the sit rep back to DC and they fucking lost their goddamn minds. They're like, you're already on the ground and you already did that, blah, blah. They acted like I jumped over the wall and threw the dog in the tunnel. You know what I mean? Like that is not what happened at all. Like, everybody calm down, please. I just did a little bit of intel work. That's it. And, but they were gassing me up about it. And, Gabriella's like, you're like, you're the golden boy here, right? And I'm like, oh, that's cool. All right, cool. But, I'm the type of guy that, and this is a very special forces and JSOC mentality, is no one cares what you did yesterday. What are you bringing to the table today? And so that was like kind of my mindset, right? And it was when I was out there, is like, always proving your worth every day. And I think that natural competition, like Armin was a fellow case officer out there who I like to talk about in the book. I'm not going to spoil anything, but me and him would compete over targets. Me and him were competing over targets. Like, I would get an in, somewhere. I get a hit on intel on this one target. He get a hit, on the same target, and we were trying to say whose intel is better. Who gets a data boy, from killing this guy. So it was very competitive. You have a bunch of SF guys, the hell of a lot of authority and cash. We're going to do some damage, man. We're only limited by our own imagination. Let's say that. And so there's a lot of things I can't say that were really funny, but we're a couple of weeks of this deployment, and I'm going out doing a source meeting, and we're on the X, and I have this guy. Huge dude. He's a huge motherfucker, right? Former Ranger back guy, and never skips a day at the gym. And he's my near side security, and I got a long gun in the back that's watching me. And he's like, I'm about to get out of the car. He goes, oh, 1 sec, I got to pee. And I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Pulls out a piss bottle, right? He has plates on, and we're sitting in this like shitty 4-door sedan, trying to look like we blend in. And he pulls it out in the middle of the X, and I hear it hitting the water bottle. And, the long eye, he cracks over the comms. He's like, is he taking a piss in the car? Like, he could see the whole thing through his scope. And I just start dying laughing. It was just like one of those moments where it's like tensions are high, and, we're just a bunch of SF guys like laughing at, the laughing at just random shit like that, So it was like good moments like that. It was a very good crew of dudes. Yeah.
I want to bring back up again Gabriella, because there was trouble with Gabriella while you're over there. And I think these are the things that I think you would agree that led to thoughts of suicide. Would you agree to that?
100%. Okay. And 100%. And I will caveat. Do you have more to that question? Because I'll dive right in.
No, go.
Oh, okay. So I think of like the state of mind, right? Like I said a couple of times, so far, was that I'm in a committed relationship that's taken care of. I don't need to worry about that, and so I was starting to get the yo-yo while I was out there. It wasn't reciprocating, wouldn't even, text me back or anything like that. I mean, the whole reason, should we get into the whole, one of the main reasons why I'm on a deployment? Because I think that's like,
I definitely think that needs to be stated.
Needs to be said, because, so, one of my favorite parts of the book in writing this, and this actually happened, is obviously some people are finding out about this relationship I have with Gabriella, and I have to go through extraordinary lengths to cover our asses. And how do I do it? I do it the good old-fashioned clandestine way. And, I hatch this deception operation, cost me a little bit of money. I'm not going to spoil for you because I want you to find it out in the book. But I had to laugh at myself at how ridiculous I am. But that was like my default. I was like, I know how to fix this. I'm gonna out trade craft them. like whatever, right? So I end up so they need me. I wasn't slated to go on this deployment till like 2020. And there was a whole class of people that graduated a year ahead of me the last class. And I haven't even been out on a single op yet, single operation, not even just a routine. Hey, go meet with this guy, see if he's interesting, or hey, we got a lead, go check it out. No one's been out the door yet, except for one guy. But so there's a lot of people ahead of me to go to Iraq. And so it's after Labor Day weekend. I just moved from Baltimore to DC so I could be closer to Gabriella and, have a little more privacy in my life, for obvious reasons. And so they pulled me in the office and they're like, hey, we want you to go to Iraq and Syria in 30 days. And I was like, who? What? And at this point, the divorce wasn't going to get finalized until November. And we're talking Labor Day weekend. So I had to be wheels up by end of September to be in country October. Right. And obviously I can make it happen. I've deployed with far less time, in special forces. We do that shit on the reg, So I'm like, okay, this isn't complicated. But I talked to the leadership and I was like, all right, Green Berets never say no. I'm not going to say no to a combat deployment. I would never do that. If you think I'm the best person to go and I'm the only option, yes, I'm going to go. But so I articulate like, I'll go, but I have this divorce. It's really important to me and it's going to financially ruin me if this doesn't go to court or whatever. And they downplayed my divorce. They said it's not a big deal. The sergeant major, not an SF guy, not even a soft dude, was like, oh, I had one of those. It's not bad. I'm like, yeah, that's easy to say when you never fucking deployed, bud. Easy for you to handle your shit when you're not out getting after it, man. Obviously I didn't say that. So, but they placate me for 2 weeks and then they call me when I'm at home. They're like, you're the only one going. Everybody else has too much going on. Right. So at this point, I have to settle my divorce to the tune of like somewhere around 90 grand, which is all it was like the war money and then even more money I made,
What my brain kept doing in the book was just keeping a calculation going of how much.
Yeah. Well, like, it's just, I mean, that's like deployments of getting paid TDY money and being like, no, I'm going to eat this sketchy food stand over here because I'm trying to make 85 a day. So it's like, that relates with a lot of my first group friends, And so they didn't even take into account that I paid off all their student loans and their credit card debt and everything else. They were like, yeah, too bad. This is the toll. But I was in a bad position. So, I finalized the divorce. Meanwhile, like Gabriella's like pissed at me because I'm still married. And, why haven't I prioritized this? They're talking about sending me there. I got the love of my, the assumed love of my life, like, messing with me after I like jumped through all these hoops to just get her, to clear the air and, save the relationship. And I'm just like, holy shit. And there I was on my empty English basement apartment that I just moved into, having what I would like to say, a nervous breakdown. And so I ended up just saying, fuck it, from wise words of my mother and my sister, like, just finalize it. You'll make more money, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, I'll make more money on this deployment. I'll be able to make some of it back. Right. And so meanwhile, I'm in the office. I'm jumping through my ass. I'm making phone calls. I'm trying to like, I'm like, got to go get, fit and issue and everything else. I got to go down to Bragg. And I only got like 2.5 weeks to make all this happen. And I do, but I'm making phone calls and one of the kids, I say kids, right? Definitely a child. And this dude was bragging in the little bullpen of how he got out of deployment. And he was saying, no way I was going to that deployment. Me and my wife already had tickets to Paris for Christmas. And I'm like, I just fucking financially ruined myself for this motherfucker to go to Paris with his wife, right? And I feel like the mental calculus of leadership was like, oh, well, marriage is in the shitter, so we might as well not ruin another one, like, and I'm just like, where is the mission focus of any of these people? Like, I couldn't get over it. I swear to God, if that happened at group, tabs would have been pulled and your ass would have been in the 82nd by like the following Monday, needs of the army. See you later, bro. Tab revoked. And it's like, I'm just like, and I'm too much of a mission junkie, right? To always put the mission first. Green Berets will always put the mission first, so, to say no, or really, again, something I struggled with, in relationships is, airing a lot, airing things in a way, my concerns, and being stern about it, that this is a problem for me, and, being realistic about it. And so I think of like the read that they had on me about this deployment was the same read I had on my wife about kids. So I have to laugh at myself.
Don't
man.
remember, it was not good.
It was not good. Yeah. So I have to laugh at myself, man. And, humor is medicine for sure. And, letting go of a lot of things, by laughing at them will heal a lot of wounds for sure. It definitely has worked for me. So, I like to make fun of myself, obviously, but so all this is wrapped up. And so I'm out on this deployment now, to answer your question, right? To get to the root of it. So with all that background information, folks, I'm on this deployment. She starts being cold, getting a cold shoulder, man. And I'm like, this doesn't feel good. I don't feel good. I had anxiety. I started having anxiety about the relationship. I was like, oh man, she's going to fucking end it. I just feel it. I feel it. I just feel it. You know what? And I was ignoring it. And I was just trying to focus on work. There was an 8-hour between Iraq and the East Coast. There's like 8-hour difference, right? I think it's about 8 hours. And, so I had plenty of time, to plow through work during the day. And sometimes, we're working through the night. I mean, I remember one op, I got back from an op at like 2 a.m. and I was rolling out at 7 a.m., for another one. And, it was like 18-hour days. And
that's always good to help with the mental health too.
Yeah, it really does. But I mean, I felt as though I was talking to a Green Beret friend this weekend, and I went on this. Oh, I'll save that story for another time. But I generally sleep better. I sleep well on deployments. I don't have a problem sleeping.
I've heard that from a couple guys.
It's when I get home, that's when all this shit, I'm like, it's too quiet outside. Like I'm not surrounded by 11 other men armed to the gills. If anything pops off, we're going to just murder the shit out of it, and that's like, that safety and security feeling, is gone. But like on deployment, I don't have a problem, sleeping. And, but there's also not much going on. So, but anyway, so yeah, between the sleep, I guess I was getting okay sleep. Chow was, I swear to God, this is the bougiest deployment I ever I've been on. And it wasn't Iraq it wasn't Ramadi 2005, so, danger is a very relative thing. The danger wasn't that high, but we're doing serious clandestine work, and getting caught is really bad. So that's where the stress and the pressure comes in, and you got to protect your sources. You protect yourself, and you're protecting your sources, the means and methods and all this other stuff. So, so tensions are high, and I'm new at doing the job. But, 3 months into this, I'm an old hand, couple ops a week, I'm doing way more than person in the, first couple of years. You say someone's doing this job at an embassy, don't get as many reps as you get in a combat theater like that, and, but, so I'm basically an old hand. December's rolling around, and I'm getting this feeling she's becoming more distant, not reciprocating I love yous, not responding to calls, not responding to texts. And, I'm giving the effort, despite everything going on, the madness that is in the background noise of madness that is Operations. And it's like week and a half before Christmas, I think. I forget the day. I'm pretty tired. And, she calls me and she's like, let's see where this is going. I'm out here for you. All right. Like, I am not doing, and this is to begin the conversation we had tonight. Are you out there for yourself, Dave? No, I'm trying to protect this relationship. I'm trying to recruit, I built up in my mind that I'm here for somebody else. And, the most soul crushing part of that phone call was, hearing the Christmas music go on the ground as she was out doing Christmas shopping. And it was like, I don't even get, you can't even call me at home, type of thing. And tale is old as time. And so I just feel this crushing.
Do you remember the song?
Yeah, it was like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It was just the instrumental to it, right here in the back, and you can hear the chimes, like stuff like that. And I'm sitting in my little chew, so yeah, we're in containerized housing units, and by this point in deployment, there's a path of water bottle. There's just one clear path, and it's just water bottles. My guns, my plates, my nod, the helmet, ops core nods, all this shit, radios, grenades, and then just like a path to my bed, and my pistols on my nightstand. And I'm on the edge of my bed, hands in my head. And this is a dialogue, the whole I can't win dialogue that was accompanying me the entire time during my divorce. All of a sudden turned into complete and utter apathy. Just that is what this whisper in my head started saying. Just fucking end it. And I am looking at this pistol, man, and I am looking at it, and I don't know how long I was there, but when you're going through something, when you're having a break like this, actual like emotional break of just complete and utter emptiness, and something that you knew was going to happen that happened anyways, this completely defeated sense of helplessness, and me looking at that pistol, I just, I wasn't fighting it, and I just kept saying, end it. I didn't know how long that went on for, but I don't know what it was. I'm not making this up. I don't know if it was my ancestors, my grandfather, somebody looking out for me, but I felt the presence of that room at the edge of the bed. And it said to me, you're needed. That was it. It didn't say it. It was a feeling. And I was looking at the pistol, pushed it away. I said, fuck you. I'm going to the gym. And then I don't know what time I was in there till, but I was slaying myself on equipment till chow opened up at 7:30, which I never ate breakfast. We were sleeping, because we were only a couple hours off from doing hood rat shit all night. And so, as I like to say, and so I go to the chow hall, and this conversation's inside me, and now I'm uncomfortable with my sidearm, because now it's like it can end my pain, I can end my pain, and but I knew I just had to throw myself at the mission, and I forgot to mention this, but after that feeling I had, I said to myself, all I have left now is the mission. And I swear to God, my dedication to the mission saved my life. It did. And so that next day, I'm tired. TL comes over to me at some point during the day. He's like, "Hey, I need you to drop everything, and I want you to work on this one project with me." I'm like, "Okay, dude. I have a ton of shit going on. What the hell is so goddamn important that needs to? Well, I had to drop all my irons in the fire." And he's like, "Dave, trust me, you're gonna want to work on this." And I'm like, "Okay, fine, all right." So help him out, and we're working on it together for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and it's building up. And I could tell it was something serious because every time we were sending intel up, like, high level, CENTCOM would like come right back like half hour later. They're like, "Hey, we need this, this, and this," and we're like, "What the fuck? Like, this isn't, we're not just some like, on demand clandestine service here. Come on, like, there's like, and but that we had to make it happen, make mission, and so we kept at it. And there was like one project I just kept tabs on. There was this ISIS shithead, I forget his name, and he was in Iraq. I got 2 pieces of intel, to meet trigger on it, and I was working with a team in another compound, and I call him up, and this is where I had a reputation every time I went over there. Like, and I had no idea, but like they were like, "Oh shit, here comes this guy again." Every time he comes here, something fucking pops off, man. Right? Like, I was like the black sheep every time he showed up, right? and I had no idea. I go in, I do my thing, I'd leave. I'm in, I'm out, see you later, right? And and I wouldn't create trouble for them, but so I call up the team leader over there. And I go, "Hey, man, how about this Christmas Day raid?" And he's like, yeah, Christmas Day raid. And I'm gassing this guy up. I'm like, you know what? And this is me. This is the angry version of myself trying to deal with all the internal emotional pain inside myself. I say to him, like, I go, "Yeah, George Washington crossed the Delaware on Christmas Day to kill the British. We're going to cross Iraq to kill ISIS." He's like, "Yeah, all right." And I'm just getting him all riled up about it. And we were all like, "Yeah, fuck yeah. We're going to celebrate the birth of Christ with dead ISIS." Yeah, right? Like, fuck Christmas. That type of thing. And by the way, fuck Rudolph. Yeah, fuck Rudolph too. If he's out there on the objective, he's getting shot in the fucking face. So we tee up this con op, and they shot it down right away. They're like, "Jesus Christ, guys, call your wives. You're not going out on Christmas, all right?" And I was like, "Wife? I don't," I was like easily triggered. What I mean? But it was just funny to do it. So, but things are heating up on the other target that I'm working on, and so it's like January 2nd. I'm like month 4 into this ish, going into month 4. And, anyone that's deployed a lot, month 4, you feel it in your bones, and most people there are on a 4-month pump. I'm on a 6-month pump. And so like, I'm getting like changeover and new blood coming in, and they're all like riled up, like, "Yeah, let's get after it." And I'm like, "Oh shit, I'm tired," but, mission first, baby. So it's January 2nd. And my audible bitching in our little op center that we had was getting louder. I'm like, "Nothing's happening tonight. We've been chasing a fucking ghost for like 2 goddamn weeks. I'm going to bed. I don't care. I've seen enough of these things to know how they go. Bad guy dies. Okay, cool, whatever." And they were like, "No, you're staying up for this." I'm like, "Really?" And they pull out one of those shitty metal foldable chairs, and he goes, "Sit the fuck down." And I'm like, "Okay, man. All right." So I'm sitting there, and, all the ISR in the world is, trailing around Baghdad International Airport. So I knew something was amiss. I didn't know. But, we're still working intel basically, the last few hours of this thing. And we I'm sitting there, I'm watching this, and just as the intelligence foretold, just as the information foretold, plane pulls up, individual gets down, gets in a black SUV. SUV travels down a particular route, and I gets on Route Irish coming out of BAP, and then the ISR bird locks on. And a few seconds later, that SUV is turned into a giant pile of twisted metal, right? And my buddy, within seconds after that, slaps me on the back, goes, "Congratulations, you just bagged Qasem Soleimani." And the can't even tell you the emotional upheaval in that room. It was like we just won the fucking Super Bowl, man. It was literally like we won the Super Bowl. Absolute hedonism for like 3 or 4 hours, you know? Holy shit. And the joke I made, I remember later that night, I said, well, we might as well enjoy it tonight because we're all fucking dead tomorrow. So, do you want me to continue? Because this gets spicier. This story doesn't end here, folks.
Absolutely.
Doesn't end there, folks. But I have to say before I continue on is that, there's a lot of other people involved. I only know my small part, so I can't take 100% credit for this thing. I worked with other people. They deserve credit. I think the J2 is evil mastermind puppeteer deserves credit, for that, because I'm sure he was maneuvering other elements on the field of play to make that happen too. So, I also like to joke that, so another fun story I've had since this book came out, I had a friend of mine tell me that President Trump was presented 2 courses of action. So in the lead up to the Soleimani strike, we were getting all this intel that Kataib Hezbollah was going to attack the U.S. Embassy. And so I want to say this because I want to show the decision-making that happened at the strategic levels. And we were expecting another Benghazi to happen. And everybody on the ground was going to be like, the fuck that's going to happen? Absolutely fucking not, And so we were working on retaliatory targets, if anything happened. And so President Trump was presented 2 courses of action. You got COA 1, COA 2. They're like, COA 1 is the best. Go with this. And I don't know what they were, but they brought up Soleimani as the throwaway COA. And you know how that man is. He was probably like, fuck yeah, let's do that. that sounds sensational, right? And so that was the inside baseball in the room and how he was briefed. And I just find it really funny that that's how it went down. And here on the ground, we're trying to make this happen. But the aftermath was also equally insane because we were basically like, keep your foot on the gas. And we kept our foot on the gas, and there were strikes every night, and we were dabbing targets. We were chasing after the guy. I was chasing after the guy that killed the American contractor on K1. Trying to get a fix, find a fix on his ass, and hunt him down, Hezbollah operative. So we were working extra hard. And then on January 8th, they decide to bomb us. And we just thought it was a bunch of 107 rounds. And we're like, it's just going to be a bunch of 107s. So for the audience, 107s are not very accurate, but they look real pretty, when they go off. And, to our luck. And so we're sitting in the bunker and we get hit with the medium range ballistic missile. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a direct hit, but I remember hearing that thing and it was like a boom, boom, like that. And you could kind of feel like the shock of it. Even though it wasn't nearby. And everyone was like, holy shit, what was that? And I remember I look at Armin, because Armin at that point, he was sitting outside the bunker in a camping chair with all his kit on. You know, that was his fourth deployment. That was his fourth pump on that, doing that job. And so he was, I would say, pretty salty. You know,
well, you had to drag him in, didn't you?
Yeah, his ass. He was up super fast, jumping right in the bunker, and I remember very vividly sitting there, and I was comforting a woman named Edith. Edith was one of our interpreters, and she was one of the most brilliant interpreters that we had in terms of being able to build rapport with people, knowledge of, questions to ask. At this point, she has done so much ride-alongs with case officers. She could probably be one herself, in terms of the gift of gab and, questions to ask and stuff like that. And so, she's super worried, and I'm just being a good NCO. I'm going around trying to keep morale up. And, she was very worried and just head in her phone, and I just kind of let her be. But then, we're going on, and, foot is on the gas. We're going after everything. We're going after, retaliatory targets, for Hezbollah. And we're going to pick ISIS back up at some point and keep killing them and beating them back too. So relentless pace of operations, and we're looking super close to going to war with Iran at this point. And word comes out that everybody that I was with, we were going to be the team to go across if war kicked off, or in the prelude to war kicked off. And I was like, holy shit, man. I'm like, this was the joke I made to everybody when they told us. I was like, well, boys, at least there'll be a book about us. And I also, at that time, very much still in the depths of my despair. I was like, oh God, this is, IRGC. If I go over there and die, I don't care. My pain, I'll die a hero instead of, dying of shame from, death by suicide. And, that was like what I was thinking about. I was like, oh man, that sounds like an out. Right? Sign me up, guys. Let's go. Let's fuck some shit up. Go down in a hail of glory, And, but that didn't happen because Edith betrayed us. Edith gave up sources to Hezbollah. And by virtue of that fact, got into probably the hands of the Iranians. So not only that, she knew the dirty deed I did too. And I was at 5 months, 18 days when my deployment ended, unceremoniously packed, in a C-17 and sent back home, for my own safety. So, now I had that to contend with. That was great. So now I come back, and I'm back in DC in my English basement apartment all by myself. Nothing but alone with my thoughts.
Can I point out something too?
Sure.
And having been betrayed by one more woman.
Just betrayal after betrayal about this book, man. And it wasn't even just so much a woman, but it was just the fact that I was betrayed by somebody that I
cared about.
Trust. Yeah, cared about. Actually was, a good human being too, and took care of, right? And it was like, I look at the betrayal of Richard. I look at, the surprise change of heart in my wife, which could be viewed as a betrayal. The betrayal of Gabriella, right? And then now this, right? And I laugh because everything that could happen to a spy happened to me on that. I caught the full gamut. And I was like, damn it, I peaked too soon, right? It was like, but it was soul crushing. It was soul crushing. I mean, you want to talk about moral injury, right? Like, here's a person that we should be able to trust. And yeah, we're fucked, right? And so I'm back in my apartment. I remember I stashed a bottle of Balvenie. I love Balvenie. Balvenie 12 year.
There's one right behind me.
Oh, nice. It should be there. Maybe on the next one. Next time.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to happen at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but anyways, I'm in this English basement apartment now, and I look at that Balvenie 12 year, and I'm like, no, we're not going to drink it. I'm not going to do it. And I said, whatever the fuck this is going on inside me, we're going to figure it out. And I kind of made that commitment to myself. But, the internal dialogue wouldn't stop. It wouldn't stop. All I could think, every day I got up, I just thought, man, it'd be really great, if it just ended, right? So now I'm on the backside of almost taking my own life, and it's still suicide ideation still in my head. I'm thinking of like, I'm talking to myself, should have did it in Iraq, should have did it there, right? Because the world's shut down by COVID at this point. March 18th, 2020, I was the last plane that flew into Dulles Airport before they shut everything down for COVID. So, I couldn't go home to be with my family, to kind of breathe some strength back into me, because going home for me was always a point of strength. Family gives you a good reminder of who you are, and make you feel good about yourself. So, definitely needed that, but you couldn't do it. We weren't allowed to travel anywhere. So here I am just fucking stuck on this negative feedback loop, man, of just wanting to end it, and no reprieve whatsoever, other than the approximately 6-mile run to my place to Abe Lincoln and back. I mean, that was the one reprieve I had during the day, and there was no one on the DC Mall because everything was shut down. Technically, I shouldn't even been running there, but it was actually really cool to be the only guy at Abraham Lincoln Memorial and just sit there and be like, where the fuck did it all go wrong, man? And so what I started to do was, I had an aha moment, and it hit me in a very concrete way. I was clearing out my storage unit, getting rid of all my wife's stuff that she left me with, and a cement truck hit, and I borrowed a buddy's car. So I had this little shitty red Volkswagen Jetta, and the concrete truck was red. So he thought I was just an extension of his car or his truck when he moved over. But my defensive driving course kicked in, and he hit me, almost gobbled up like the driver's side door under his passenger side tire. And my training kicks in, and then I get over, I check my mirrors real quick, and I get over in the breakdown lane, and he's like, are you okay? And I'm just like, shit, I just missed my chance. It's screwed up to laugh about, but I have to laugh at myself because that was the mindset at the time. And so I went back to my apartment, and I looked in the mirror. I looked at my mirror, the same look I looked at myself all those years ago after the ground zero visit, and had that reckoning with my life. I'm having another reckoning right now. And I verbalized want to kill myself outside. I verbalized it for the first time. Said it out loud. That's the word I'm looking for, out loud. Sorry, we've been talking for a while. I said it again, and I felt an immediate catharsis when I did that. I finally was true to the ugly internal dialogue inside myself. I was, in essence, as I like to say, owning my shit. And it's kind of an extension of Carl Jung's psychology. Carl Jung talks about how there's a shadow inside of us, right? And in that shadow, there's all these emotions, fear, right? Fear. A lot. What led me there was a lot of fear. And by verbalizing it, I was just stage one of letting go of this. And that's why I felt a lot better. But me being who I am, and I decided I basically took all the spy training that they gave me, $1 million education, right? And I turned it against myself. And I asked myself why. And I said, why do we feel the way we feel? And I couldn't settle until I had a aha moment. Now, it took me a while. I'm sitting there trying to figure out my stuff, and it's like summer of 2020. Now it's spring now, summer of 2020, and DC's burning down because of the BLM and George Floyd protests, right? Not that it was actually the protest, but the looting and crazy shit that happened, afterwards. I'm sitting on this little patio in front of my brick row home. No one else is. My neighbor, my landlord was a congressman. My neighbor was Lindsey Graham. So, none of them are around. They're all back and they're the constituents. I'm like the only guy that's living in the house on the block, right? 400 block. And I'm just watching DC kind of like spin out of control while I'm just kind of calmly sitting there, drinking a little bit of Balvenie and just trying to unpack all this shit on my own, And the crux of it, what I figured out, and you saw this when you read the book, and I think you're the only person that I've talked to has gotten this deep with it, right? Is that my entire value in myself was dependent on other people. I was fearful of what other people thought of me. That's how I ended up in the situation I was in, right? Fearful of saying no at work, fearful of saying no to Gabriella, thinking that she wouldn't love me. Fear was ruling me. And then by recognizing that's where the thoughts were triggering these emotions, but that was the crux of it. So I like to say is that, the unconscious mind is a very brutal place. It's a very brutal place. A lot of us are like that. And there's an old saying is that, there's a lot of truth to this, is that we suffer more in our own mind than we ever do in reality. And if you want to get on the path of emotional freedom, you have to learn to ask yourself why. And you have to identify these things that are going on inside yourself and have a good laugh about it. I told myself, that's not the truth about myself. This isn't the truth about me. None of this. And, that's why I wrote the book that I wrote in the way I wrote it, this sort of super detailed, diary almost, some people describe it as, because I know that this period doesn't define me and I came out stronger for it. And so when we started this conversation, you asked me, where are you now? I'll tell you, I'm the most genuine version of myself I've ever been. I'm that guy that was back in Norwich. I'm that guy that was in that OD 18 room before it all went wrong. Obviously worked on a lot of things, communication, right? So I know you want me to kind of tap on some, where am I at now? I'm in a healthy relationship right now, very healthy relationship, and that's because I know how to communicate now. And I know how to ask for things. I know how to, when I'm not happy with something, I know how to bring those up. And, it coming from a place of love and wanting to make things work. But you also have to have somebody that's on the other end who is receptive to that and understands that and wants that too. So it's, don't get me wrong. After Into the Darkness, there's a couple graveyards of relationships too. I was still figuring it out. Part of me wants to write out of the darkness, and I would include a lot of that stuff. So, but I think for your readers and listeners, definitely, check out the book. And, ultimately it's have the courage to ask yourself why. And most importantly, when you ask yourself why, it's ownership and you're owning your shit. That's it. It's not super complicated. And there's a lot, and here's the thing, there's a lot of different ways to go about it. You can do cognitive behavioral therapy. There is plenty, and now there's a lot of resources. I've been doing a fair amount of research. Psychedelics help break a lot of, make your brain more malleable to change, help you seize back control of those dirty internal dialogues. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, does the same thing too. Everyone's like, well, why didn't you do that, Dave? Well, because I knew if I raised my hand and took a time out for mental health, that was going to be my job. And at that point in my life, the only thing I knew, the only thing I had was the mission, But, a lot of, well, it's like, well, how you don't have a mission anymore? Oh no, but I have purpose, So, mission changes over time.
Well, and you and I have talked about the relationship that you're in now. We won't talk about how you described it. It was a very clever way to describe it. The person that you were in a relationship with. But what I think is great about it, and I don't want to go too deep into it, like I said, how you described it to me. What I thought was great about you telling me that was you talked to that person about how you described them. You would have never done that before. And it shows how far you've come, not only in yourself, but in relationships. I think you would agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And, previous relationships, I was operating from a place of fear and not out of a true place of love.
Right.
And I think a lot of it is after my battle with suicide, I had to learn to love myself. And that took a while.
Well, and I think you would agree
but,
too that you can't love anybody else unless you do love yourself.
Absolutely. 100%. And I think, I'm kind of a spiritual guy, but it's one of those things you attract the energy you give, and I was in I didn't know it, but all the tumultuous relationships I was in the book was really energy I was giving off inside. And I was a fearful person putting up a great act. Really was, in terms of the decision-making process that I was under. And I think of when you let go of that and, letting go of your ego too, because the ego doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve you. It's important to have pride, and have values, but, the ego is going to make you do dumb things. I remember, so my last operational assignment, I was in New York City, and I was in a serious relationship with a very wealthy woman. And I remember, and, the crux of that relationship that really pulled me in was, she had a son. And, for me, I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'll be this dude's dad, all day. Right. So, do you want to do jujitsu? Yeah. Okay, cool. So, I missed all the hard shit. He was 6 years old, so at that point I just had to show up and be his friend. But I look at that relationship and, I remember one of the things I said to myself and, having moved through a tumultuous relationship with Gabriella, and then, a kind of very emotionally void marriage, right? Was, she was very wealthy, didn't have to work, lived in Manhattan. And, I was like, all right, this is what I deserve because I'm this, and this. That is no way to be selecting a partner or anything. And again, here's another lesson I didn't learn, DJ, was that woman was also suggested to me. So, I think of, you know, and I'll even admit there was insecurity inside myself in there because I'm not this well-educated dude. I don't come from money. I don't have shit, you know? Like, what do I bring to the table? Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's, there was a lot of insecurity with that, too. And it's just so friggin' funny, man. Like, well, then you start realizing like how it's just two different worlds, and how one's brought up one way, I was brought up another way. And then you start seeing the clash of values. So, for me, I think like walking away from that relationship was hard, but it was the right decision. And that was a growing moment for me that I knew I was moving on. But it's a steady process. It's not just, overnight thing. I would say probably my recommendation for anybody is just take time off. Just take time off. Like it sucks. I know I know as men, we got physical needs. And, find a healthy outlet for that. I took about, I would say like almost 2 years off.
Wow.
And then, I met the woman that I'm currently with right now. Like, and it's been amazing and it's way different. And you're able to, because I know my vulnerabilities, you look at the Carver matrix of yourself for relationships. You got to carver yourself, carver yourself, like what are critical things I absolutely despise in a partner? Okay. So that, goes right here in this block. But, we all have as SF guys, we all have the tools, but you just got to do the work internally. And it sucks. You got to have uncomfortable conversations with yourself.
So what do you think with all of this building? What's next for you?
Like I said, I'm a dabbler, man. I don't have a plan. I don't like planning, like a lot of people my age, I'm 39 going on 40. Well, millennials, they're always like, oh, we're going to plan the rest of my life and this, that, and the other thing. I'm just like, I'm doing stuff what's interesting. I enjoy writing. I have a fiction novel that I'm working on. I also, I think I got like out of the darkness on a whiteboard. But I also work with law enforcement now. And so and I know you're a law enforcement officer. I work in corrections officer, and I do health and wellness for them. So I basically building and built a health and wellness program for the corrections officers in Essex County, Mass. And so I really enjoy working with law enforcement because they suffer from a lot of the same things that military suffer from. Now, probably not to the extreme of operator syndrome. I know I saw you had Dr. Free on like last month or something. Great dude. You want to talk about constellation of injuries. I've had a TBI, whole slew of things. And I kind of like, I look at my battle with suicide, not just of my own machinations, but also maybe I had a brain bleed, man. That's going to mess with your frontal cortex. So, but anyways, working with this population now, I do health and wellness for them. I don't do, I love this because people are like, oh, you do it for the inmates? And I'm like, fuck no. Like, and so I try to get these guys eating better, moving more, going to their doctor's appointments, taking care of themselves, looking into their sleep, how they're sleeping, like all these things that we take for granted, as Green Berets, and sort of the tools and resources that we're exposed to. I'm trying to bring in-house there. And I definitely help. I'm CISM qualified, so I run the peer support team. I'm kind of like, sitting back, making sure it runs correctly, getting people training and stuff. And, we're getting better as an organization. Because like health and wellness, especially mental health, it's the same stigma in the military as there is in law enforcement, right? And they know that, oh, if I go talk to this person, I'm going to get sectioned, or, you know, there's all these things. But, you know, I show them that there is a lot of good that can come from it, you know. And I work with, you know, people that are struggling with addiction, and all the things that come with that. And, you know, addiction is surprisingly not much different than what I went through, you know, emotionally. What is the emotion? Yeah, I was addicted to hating myself.
Addicted to bad relationships.
Addicted, honestly, addicted to chaos.
Yeah.
Addicted to chaos. And that is why I kept chasing what I chased. I wish I said that earlier because I did know that, but like, yeah, I was addicted to chaos, man. Loved the thrill of it. You know, the thrill of being a spy was, you know, to me was getting away with shit, doing stuff that was important, but mostly getting away with shit was the fun part. I think I was on another podcast and they're like, yeah, like SF guys are like borderline criminals in terms of their psychology. I'm like, I wouldn't call it that, but like, hey man, you know, we like going out and doing dangerous things with our friends. Okay. So that's just part of who we are. It's in our DNA. But like, you get used to the chaos. You get used to so much chaos that it starts to feel comfortable. And that's all you know. And that's really where I was. And so learning what my last operational assignment was, I had stability, man. I had stability. I wasn't deployed to a combat theater. You know, I had like, you know, you had a day job, you had a night job, right? Like,
Right.
So, but I controlled the tempo of everything, and I had a lot of autonomy. So for me, for the first time in my military career, I actually had stability, and I'm like, this is really nice. Oh my God. And, you know, I still obviously, you know, me being at the time, a prolific chaos lover, I had a heavy workload, you know, because I was like, oh, I can handle it, you know. And the funny thing about addiction, right, is they all start as coping mechanisms. I mean, I'm sure there's some psychologists out there that would you know, say otherwise or whatever. But I look at some of the cases that I've helped in my current role, and a lot of it is, especially with alcoholism, you know, it was an event, and there's multiple triggering events that go on during the day, and that leads to drinking to turn it all off. And that coping mechanism over time is what turns into an addiction. So but really it's the negative feedback loop, the emotional feedback loop, and stuff like that that's associated with it. So I took a psych class. I'm in a master's program right now, and took a psych class, and we talked about exercise addiction. And I'll tell you, I rated really fucking high on that scale. So I was sitting there and I was like, you know, this was a growth moment for me, was I started unpacking all this shit inside me, you know, in terms of, you know, I was at a point, you know, for me, like exercise is just raw, unadulterated discipline. It's just something I do every day. But, you know, if I don't do it, how do I get? Yeah. I need it. So it's, all right, it's a healthy thing to do, but is it healthy if it's dictating your life? If it needs to happen every day and you're blowing off things that in order to make it happen, you're telling me that is an addiction,
right?
Too.
Right.
And so I realized that, not to self-diagnose here, but it definitely, I was like, I need to lay off this shit. You know what I mean? Like, what am I doing? You know, like, oh, he's such an addict with 11% body fat. I feel so bad for him. You know, it's not that. But what I'm saying is, though, is you got to be careful of these coping mechanisms, you know, because they are coming, you're subduing an ugly conversation inside yourself. That's the point I'm making. And I did realize that the whole exercise thing, addiction, and the level that I was going at was like rooted in like body dysmorphia, not wanting to be the fat guy on the team, like, oh, women won't like me if I don't look a certain way. It was just all this stupid dialogue that was rooted in, that was what was pushing me to go to the gym. And so when I see these people out there that, are doing these crazy things, fitness wise, kind of sitting back and I got a smile on my face. I'm like, I think I know what that internal dialogue sounds like, and you see it in other people, and that's not true for everybody. I'm not putting down athletes across the board, but, I'm just talking about my own journey, but that's
I don't think that you would have ever had that discussion before. That's where the growth is. Yeah.
That's where the growth is, and it's like, for me, that was another form of owning my shit about myself.
Right.
And so it's like, all right, well, am I throwing kid on and going out and, taking down targets at the boys? No, I'm not doing that anymore. It's not my job. Do I want to stay? So it's more of, let's come from a place of self-love and do it because we love ourselves and we want to take care of ourselves, right? And the better you take care of yourself is the better you're going to take care of others.
Well,
and
I think that's a great way to kind of wrap the whole conversation up, because it's so different from how we started the conversation of trying to impress. When you finally looked in the mirror, you have turned into self-love, taking care of yourself, therefore you can take care of others. I think is a wonderful way to kind of end the conversation, because I think it shows a full 180 turn from you.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that. Yeah. And that's exactly it.
Yeah. Guys, I got to tell you, this book is absolutely fantastic. If you want to read a book where someone dumps it out there, says they're good, they're bad, they don't really, hold anything back, this is the book to read. I can't say enough good things about it. I told you that I have both in the book form and I have the audio book form. Both of them absolutely fantastic. Let's talk about real quick where everyone can find you, because I want them to get more into the book, where we can find the book, where we can find you on social media, all of those different things.
Awesome. Probably the easiest place is my website, davefielding.com. You can find my socials there. You can find the book there. You can search on Amazon, Into the Darkness, A Journey of Love, War, and Emotional Freedom by Dave Fielding. You can even just Google search Dave Fielding and you'll find me that way. I'm on Instagram. I'm mostly on Instagram and LinkedIn as well, if you want to reach out to me.
Guys, I'm telling you, you got to check this book out. And I would even suggest getting the audio version and listening to that one. It's great how it's put together. This has been an awesome conversation, Dave. I'm so happy that you came on here. I'm so honored that you came here and told your story. Guys, you know where you can find Dave. Let's talk about where you can find me. As always, you can find me on Instagram at the DTD_podcast. You can find me on Facebook at the DTD podcast, and you can find me on YouTube, where all these conversations, they're in video form. But your one-stop shop, it's dtdpodcast.net. It's got audio, video. Dave's got his own page with pictures that he sent me. You can get a little deeper into it, find the links to him, find the links to the book. All of that will be there on his site, dtdpodcast.net. Don't forget to stop by the guys that make this show happen. Trident Coffee, Max Belts, Hatchet Brewing. I'm telling you, it's the way to be. Go with these guys. They're going to lead you in the right direction. They're going to give you a good product. And if you go to tridentcoffee.com, DTD15 will give you 15% off your order. Check out Max Belts. They're the toughest leather belt on earth. And Hatchet Brewing, check out all their swag. They're almost in the final stages of being able to ship their amazing brew all over the United States. But for right now, just check out their swag. Hats, hoodies, shirts, anything that you can think of, it's there at hatchetbrewing.com. Guys, that's going to be it for this week. That's Dave. I'm DJ. This has been the show. Catch us on the next one. We'll see you later.